Welcome to Ask Rabbit Entitled Parents, where an entitled Karen annoys everyone at the party and gets her whole night ruined. I have some awesome stories for you today. Let's jump right into it. This first post is titled, Karen Insults Others for Not Being Religious. Gets puked on by a crafty kid. My aunt, we'll call her Karen here, seemed to have an obsession with virtue signaling. Growing up, she loved telling others how better she was than everyone else. Her go-to points for this were being vegan and being Christian. This story is about the latter. For many Christmases, Aunt Karen would make the point to tell me or my dad what bad people we were for not being religious, like she was. We never went to church, and my dad never made me take Sunday school. I remember Aunt Karen saying things like, "That's not going to get you into heaven, you know," or, "It's called Christmas for a reason. There's no Santa Claus in the Bible." She made snide remarks when my cousins and I watched cartoons with Santa in them. At one point, when I was a little older, she even said something to the effect of, "People who don't celebrate Christmas for anything other than Christ will go to hell." I don't know why my dad kept inviting her over. Something about Christmas makes people think they're obligated to be with toxic people only because they're family. One Christmas Eve, I was already in my moody, rebellious teen years, so I wasn't very married to begin with. I dreaded having to spend another night with people that couldn't stand each other. Aunt Karen was especially snide this year, making comments like, "You wouldn't be so gloomy if you went to church for once," or, "Kids today need the fear of God to straighten up. OP's sins are making him miserable." The last straw was when I heard Karen essentially tell my dad, "Your son will grow up to be a criminal if he's not taught about God and the Bible." I had enough of this lady being a demon every Christmas, so I hatched a plan to get her out of my dad's house. When I was a kid, I used to be lactose intolerant, but my dad kept a jug of milk in the fridge to go with the Christmas cookies he bought for our relatives. When no one was looking, I drank a glass of milk in the kitchen and carried on like nothing had happened. After a while, I started feeling nauseous, but did my best to hide it. I made sure to stay near Aunt Karen whenever I could. Eventually, I started gagging, and then finally, I let out a projectile of white gunk and stomach acid on Aunt Karen. She screamed in horror about being a disgusting little brat and how her sparkling red dress was ruined. I pretended to cry and act remorseful, making my other relatives sympathize with me. My dad was frustrated that he had to clean the carpet and sent me to my room. I eavesdropped on Karen, lashing out at my dad for getting puked on, and finally, my dad seemed to get the hint that his sister shouldn't have been invited. He told her to leave, so she did with my cousins in tow. I got in trouble for not using the bathroom when I threw up, but I didn't care. Karen made Christmas miserable for me, my dad, and most likely my cousins, her kids, so I decided to return the favor. I thought I'd take this small victory to my grave until I discovered Reddit. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that first story. Before we get into the next story, if you guys could please do me a huge favor and hit that like button down below. Make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss any future content. All right, this next post is titled, A Karen Tries to Bully Me into Giving Her Spawn Candy. I Accidentally Shatter Her Marriage. Okay, so I'm a frequent cruiser of this subreddit, but I never thought I'd actually have my own story to tell on it. I'm still not completely convinced it wasn't a fever dream. If not for a neighbor dropping by to ask me what the heck happened last night, I probably would have dismissed it as a fever dream. But enough preface, let's get into it. So I was hoping, thanks to COVID, this wouldn't be a problem, but the kids in my neighborhood keep coming to my door on Halloween for candy. Every year, I tell them that no, I am not giving it out and to go somewhere else. I've gone so far as to put out signs telling them to shove off and leave me alone every October. But the little kids just seem to take it as a challenge. They'll repeatedly ring on the doorbell until I come out or get bored. Once they went 5 whole minutes before they went away. Or keep coming back to my place after I tell them no, hoping I'll change my mind. I never do. This year, one particularly persistent little brat from the next cul-de-sac over, who's made it her mission to wear me down for candy every year, rings the doorbell, and I tell her nicely, or as nicely as you can tell someone who repeatedly ignores the big red sign saying that my house is not for trick-or-treating, that I don't have any candy. She looks at me with what she probably thought were adorable puppy dog eyes and asks me if I wouldn't mind checking. I tell her that there's absolutely no candy in my house, nor will there ever be. That was a lie, but she didn't know that. Then the little monster gets it into her head that I'm lying and keeps asking me if I'm sure. I tell her that I'm diabetic. I'm not, but apparently she doesn't know what that means. One Google search on my phone later, and she accuses me of lying about having it. I am, but that's not the point. I suppose I could have just given her a Hershey bar, but I really didn't want her spreading the triumphant news to all the other little monsters of how she finally got the mean lady to succumb to her will at the risk of any of them following in her example. So I just tell her that I don't have to give candy to anybody who's going to be so rude as to deny my very serious medical condition and close the door. About an hour later, I'm hate watching the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie. It's a train wreck, but I can't help watching it. When I get another ring on the doorbell, I come down to find the little abomination peeking out from behind the legs of a very angry-looking entitled mom. The following exchange goes down. I say, "How can I help you, ma'am?" She says, "My daughter says you repeatedly refuse to give her candy." I say, "I'm sorry, I don't have any." And she says, "This callous attitude towards the festivities is unacceptable. It's Halloween. You should have prepared for it." Then I say, "I didn't think any kids would be trick-or-treating this year due to a certain virus." Then she says, "Well, after everything they've been through, we as a community owe it to them to make up for all the fun they've missed out on this year." And I say, "Look, I get where you're coming from, but it's 10 p.m. I'm not going to get up and go pick up a bag of Tootsie Rolls at this ungodly hour just so that your kid can have the full Halloween experience." It's here that Mommy Dearest takes it upon herself to give me a lecture on the importance of participating in the community. I told her that maybe if she wasn't such an entitled Karen, her husband would be more eager to participate in the bedroom with her instead of me. This is where I may have been kind of an a-hole. What I said was nothing more than a heat-of-the-moment remark, but the woman went absolutely ballistic hearing it. She freaked out and started screaming about whether or not her husband was sleeping with me. Apparently, the guy actually did go on some kind of business trip recently, and my little quip set off all the red flags in her head. She starts demanding to know if her hubby was in my house, trying to crane her neck around me to see inside, and shrieking at him to come out. At this point, I'm tired, I'm on the verge of food coma from all the grocery store goodies I binged on, and I'm 100% done with all of this. So, I tell her to come back with a warrant and shut the door on her in spite of her attempts to wedge her way in. I can still hear her meltdown on my way up the stairs, now joined in disharmony with her daughter, demanding to know what's going on. I look out the window of my bedroom to see her angrily punching in a number on her phone and dialing up who I think was her husband. The poor man got an earful. I didn't catch everything she said, but at one point she mentioned something about how he has no business cheating when she could have taken advantage of his absence with her brother-in-law after he came on to her at their anniversary party, but she spared his feelings by not doing anything about it. She's being so loud that she draws the attention of other trick-or-treating families in the neighborhood. Anyone unfortunate enough to ask what's going on gets treated to a first-hand soundbite of her marital problems. One neighbor goes so far as to come out of his house and ask her to take this someplace where she isn't disrupting the ambiance. This prompts her to turn her wrath on him and shrieks at him to mind his own beeswax. The poor man barely gets away with his life. It was like watching an episode of Maury unfolding if Maury Povich was an elderly Asian man. At this point, I was seriously scared that she was going to try and break into my house, looking for proof hubby was there. I considered just coming out and admitting to her that I was yanking her chain. But the ball was already in motion, and I doubted whether my confession would save her marriage at this point. Fortunately, after she ended the call, she stormed off with her now hysterical crotch goblin in tears. I felt a little bad for turning what should have been a fun night for the kid into such a traumatic experience. But maybe now she'll know not to knock on my door next year. Alright, that's going to wrap up today's Entitled Parents video. I hope you guys enjoyed those two stories today. If you did, please go ahead and do me a huge favor and hit that like button down below. Make sure to leave a comment letting me know what you thought of those stories today, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss any future content. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.